My name is Sophia Chen, and I'm about to tell you about the day I buried my grandmother while my boyfriend threw a party in our apartment. I still can't wrap my head around how someone could be so heartless, but here we are. It happened 11 days ago. My grandmother, the woman who raised me when my parents couldn't, passed away suddenly. She was 62 years old, vibrant and full of life, until a massive heart attack took her from us without warning. One moment she was tending to her garden, the next she was gone. The doctor said she didn't suffer, but that doesn't make the loss any easier to bear. I've been walking through life like a ghost ever since, going through the motions, but not really present, just surviving, one breath at a time. Let me give you some context about my life before everything fell apart. I'm 32 years old, working as a data analyst for a healthcare company here in Portland. I've worked hard to get where I am, putting myself through college while waitressing nights, building a career from the ground up. My boyfriend, Derek, is 29. He works as a marketing coordinator for a tech startup, though honestly, he spends more time on his gaming YouTube channel than he does on his actual job. We'd been together for almost 3 years, living together in my apartment for the past 8 months. My grandmother lived in Sacramento, about 10 hours south of Portland. When I got the call that she'd passed, my whole world stopped. She was my person, you know? The one who showed up to every school play, every graduation, every moment that mattered. When my parents were too busy with their own lives and problems, she was there, always. The funeral was scheduled for a Thursday. I drove down on Monday to help my aunt and uncle with the arrangements. My grandmother had been specific about what she wanted. Simple service, cremation, a small gathering of family and close friends at her favorite place, the Botanical Gardens, where she volunteered every weekend. Derek was supposed to drive down Wednesday night to be with me for the service. We talked about it multiple times. He promised he'd be there, said he wanted to support me through this. I believed him. Wednesday evening, I was at my aunt's house going through old photo albums, picking out pictures for the memorial display. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Hey babe, I'm really sorry but I can't do it tomorrow. Work emergency. Big client presentation got moved up. I have to be here." I read that message sitting on my grandmother's favorite floral couch, surrounded by pictures of her smiling face. And I felt something crack inside me. But I understood, or at least I tried to. Work emergencies happen. Bills need to be paid. I texted back that it was okay, that I loved him, that we'd talk after the service. He responded with a heart emoji. That was it. Just a heart emoji. The service was beautiful in the way that sad things can be beautiful. The Botanical Gardens were in full spring bloom, exactly as my grandmother would have wanted. Roses and tulips and lilies everywhere, their fragrance hanging in the warm air. About 30 people came, family members, old friends from her church, volunteers from the garden. Everyone shared stories about her kindness, her humor, the way she could make anyone feel special. I gave the eulogy. Somehow I made it through without completely breaking down, though my voice shook the entire time. I talked about how she taught me to bake, how she always had fresh cookies waiting when I came to visit, how she never judged me, never made me feel like I wasn't enough, how she was the safest place I ever knew. After the eulogy, we held a small committal ceremony, just immediate family, standing under an oak tree she'd loved, watching as her ashes were placed in a biodegradable urn that would be buried beneath a rosebush she'd planted years ago. The pastor was saying the final blessing when my phone vibrated in my purse. I shouldn't have looked, I know that. But grief makes you do strange things, makes you reach for any distraction from the pain. So I pulled out my phone, and there was Derek's message. "Sophia, hey, can you pick up Thai food on your way home? Also, I know you're probably tired, but could you maybe stay at a hotel tonight instead? I'm having some people over and it might be loud. Don't want you to have to deal with that after everything." This is Revenge Stories, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Help us build this community so we can bring more interesting and exciting stories for you from around the world. Your help is much appreciated. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. I stood there, staring at those words while my grandmother's ashes were being lowered into the ground. Thai food. Stay at a hotel. Having people over. The pastor was still speaking, my aunt was crying, and all I could think about was that message. Pick up Thai food. After burying the woman who raised me. Stay at a hotel because my own apartment might be too loud. I didn't respond. I just put my phone away and tried to focus on saying goodbye to my grandmother. But those words kept running through my mind like a poison. Thai food, stay at a hotel, people over. The drive back to Portland that evening was a blur. 10 hours of highway stretching in front of me. Nothing but time to think. I kept replaying that text in my head, trying to make it make sense. Trying to find some interpretation where Derek wasn't being deliberately cruel. I couldn't find one. I got back to my apartment building around 9:30 at night. I live on the 4th floor of a converted warehouse building in Northwest Portland. It's a nice place, industrial chic, exposed brick walls, the kind of apartment I was proud to afford on my own before Derek moved in. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear music. Loud music. Bass thumping through the walls. It got louder with each floor I climbed. By the time I reached the 4th floor, I knew exactly where it was coming from. My apartment. I stood outside my own door for a moment, keys in hand, trying to process what I was hearing. Not just music, voices, laughter, the sound of multiple people having a very good time. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. There were at least a dozen people crammed into my living room. Most of them I'd never seen before in my life. The coffee table I'd inherited from my grandmother was covered in beer bottles and red plastic cups. Someone had spilled something on my cream-colored rug, a dark stain spreading across the fibers. 2 guys I didn't know were sitting on my vintage velvet couch, the one my grandmother had given me when I moved into my first apartment, playing video games on my TV at full volume. Pizza boxes were stacked on my kitchen counter. Empty bottles lined the windowsill. Someone had set up a makeshift bar on my dining table. Bottles of liquor I definitely hadn't purchased scattered across the surface. In the corner by the window, a girl in a crop top was taking selfies, holding a bottle of wine, using my apartment as her backdrop for Instagram content. Derek was in the kitchen, mixing drinks with 2 of his gaming friends. He was laughing, animated, performing for an audience. He was wearing the designer shirt I bought him for Christmas, the expensive one I'd saved up for because he'd mentioned wanting it. He looked happy, completely, absolutely happy. He didn't notice me at first. Nobody did. I was standing in my own apartment, still wearing the black dress I'd worn to my grandmother's funeral, and I was invisible. Then Derek turned to grab ice from the freezer and saw me. His face did this weird thing where the smile froze, then shifted into something that was supposed to look welcoming, but just looked guilty. "Sophia, hey, you're back!" He said it too loud, too cheerful. "Guys, my girlfriend's home." A few people glanced over. Most didn't bother. The music kept playing, the video game kept going. My presence changed nothing. Derek walked over to me, drink still in his hand. "How was the drive? You must be exhausted." I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man I'd been planning a future with, the man I'd been thinking about marrying, the man who was throwing a party in my apartment on the day I buried my grandmother. "I buried my grandmother today," I said. My voice came out flat, emotionless. I was too shocked to even cry. "Yeah, I know. That's rough." He took a sip of his drink. "That's actually why I thought it would be good to have people over. You know, to cheer you up when you got back. Take your mind off things." I stared at him. "You thought having a party would cheer me up?" "Well, yeah. You've been so depressed lately. I figured some positive energy in the space would be good for you." He gestured around the room like he was showing off an accomplishment. "Everyone's having a great time. Come have a drink. Meet some people. The girl in the crop top was now recording a video dancing with her wine bottle, using my grandmother's vintage lamp as a prop. One of the guys on my couch spilled beer on the cushion and just laughed, wiping it with his hand. Something in me that had been venting finally snapped. "Get out," I said. Derek laughed. "What?" "Everyone, get out now." His smile disappeared. "Sophia, come on. Don't be dramatic. These are my friends." "I don't care. This is my apartment, my lease, my furniture, and I buried my grandmother today." My voice was getting louder now. "Get everyone out." "Babe, you're being crazy right now. Just go to the bedroom and sleep it off. We'll keep it down." That's when I pulled out my phone. "I'm going to count to 60. Anyone still here when I'm done? I'm calling the police for trespassing." Derek's face changed. "You're not serious." "Try me." I started counting, out loud. 1, 2, 3. "Sophia, stop. 4, 5, 6. People were starting to notice now. The video game paused. The music got turned down. People were looking at me like I was the problem. 7, 8, 9. "This is so embarrassing," Derek said. "You're embarrassing me." 10, 11, 12. One of his friends grabbed his jacket. "Dude, I'm just gonna go." 13, 14, 15. Derek held up his hands. Okay, everyone out. Party's over. My girlfriend's having a breakdown." His girlfriend's having a breakdown. Like I was the unstable one. Like I was the problem. People started leaving, but slowly, taking their time, grabbing their drinks, their jackets, making it clear they thought I was ruining their fun. The crop top girl rolled her eyes at me on her way out. One guy muttered something about crazy girlfriends. I kept counting. By the time I got to 45, the apartment was empty except for Derek. He stood in the middle of my living room, arms crossed, looking at me like I'd done something unforgivable. "Are you happy now?" he asked. I looked around at the destruction, the stains on my rug, the bottles everywhere, the pizza grease on my counter, the disrespect in every corner of my home. "You texted me during my grandmother's burial," I said quietly. "You asked me to bring you Thai food. You asked me to stay in a hotel so your party wouldn't be interrupted. I was trying to be considerate. Considerate would have been coming to the funeral. I told you, I had a work thing." I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, pulled up his story from earlier that day. There he was, at lunch with his gaming buddies, at the gym, setting up for the party, all time-stamped during the hours he'd claimed to be in an important work meeting. I turned the phone toward him. "No, you didn't." His face went red. Not embarrassed red, angry red. "Oh, so now you're checking up on me? That's controlling. That's literally toxic behavior. You lied to me. I didn't want to go to a funeral. They're depressing. I was trying to do you a favor by not bringing my bad energy to something so important to you." I actually laughed. It came out sharp and bitter. "You were doing me a favor." "Yes. And this is the thanks I get? You humiliate me in front of my friends? Get out." "What?" "Get your stuff and get out of my apartment." Derek's expression shifted to something ugly. "You can't kick me out. I live here. You don't pay rent. You're not on the lease. You moved in with 3 suitcases and a gaming setup. Get out. You're overreacting because you're emotional. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you're thinking clearly." I walked to the bedroom, grabbed his largest suitcase, started throwing his clothes into it. He followed me, still talking, still justifying. "Sophia, come on. You don't mean this. You're grieving. You're not in your right mind." I kept packing. His gaming headset, his controllers, his collection of energy drinks he kept in the fridge. "Babe, stop. Let's talk about this like adults." I hauled the suitcase out to the living room, went back for another load. His shoes, his toiletries, the expensive cologne I'd bought him for his birthday that he never wore. "You're being insane right now. Everyone's going to think you lost it." I pulled out my phone again, pulled up that text message, the one about Thai food and hotels. I took a screenshot. "What are you doing?" I opened my contacts. Found his mother's number. Mrs. Patterson had always been kind to me. We'd had lunch together several times. She had told me she was so glad Derek had found someone stable and grounded. I sent her the screenshot with a message. "This is what your son texted me while I was burying my grandmother. Thought you should know the kind of man you raised." Derek's face went white. "You can't just send private messages to my mother." "I just did." "Delete it right now." "No." He lunged for my phone. I stepped back and he missed, stumbling into the couch. For a second, I saw something in his face that actually scared me. Pure rage, barely controlled. "Give me your phone." "Touch me and I call the police." We stood there in a standoff. Him breathing hard, face red. Me holding my phone, standing my ground in my own apartment. His phone started ringing. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and his face went even paler. "Mom," flashed on his screen. He answered. "Mom, I can explain." I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could hear the tone. Sharp, angry, disappointed. "It wasn't like that. She's twisting things. She's being crazy." More sharp words from the other end. "I was trying to help. She's been so depressed." His mother's voice got louder. I could almost make out words now. "Fine, fine. I'll leave." He hung up and glared at me. "My mom wants to talk to you." My phone rang a second later. I answered. "Sophia, honey, I am so deeply sorry." Mrs. Patterson's voice was thick with emotion. "I just read what he sent you. On the day of your grandmother's funeral. I'm horrified. Absolutely horrified." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. I'm coming over right now to help him pack his things. He will not bother you any more tonight. I promise you that. You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. I raised him better than this. Or at least I thought I did." She arrived 30 minutes later, still in her pajamas with a coat thrown over them. She took one look at the mess in my apartment, the beer bottles and stains and pizza boxes, and her face hardened. "You threw a party," she said to Derek. "Today of all days." "Mom, it's not what it looks like. It looks like your girlfriend came home from burying her grandmother to find you hosting a frat party in her apartment. I was trying to cheer her up." Mrs. Patterson turned to me. "Sophia, I am so sorry. For all of this, you deserved so much better." I started crying then. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears running down my face. Because someone finally understood. Someone finally validated that this was wrong, that I wasn't crazy for being hurt. Mrs. Patterson helped Derek pack the rest of his things. It took 3 trips to get everything down to her car. The whole time, Derek kept trying to argue with her, trying to explain how I was overreacting, how I was making a big deal out of nothing. She wasn't hearing it. "You lied to her. You threw a party on the day she buried her grandmother. You asked her to stay in a hotel in her own apartment. What part of that is defensible?" "You don't understand our relationship." "I understand plenty." She looked at me one more time before they left. "You have my number. If he bothers you, you call me immediately." Then they were gone. The door closed behind them, and suddenly I was alone in my apartment. My messy, destroyed, beer-stained apartment. I locked the door, put the chain on, and then I completely fell apart. I'd been holding myself together for days, through the news of my grandmother's death, through the planning and the service and the burial, through the drive home, through discovering the party, through the confrontation. Now, alone in my apartment, I finally let myself break. I slid down the wall and sobbed. For my grandmother, who deserved better than for me to spend the day of her funeral dealing with this nightmare. For myself, for wasting 3 years on someone who couldn't even show up when it mattered most. For the relationship I thought I had that turned out to be a complete illusion. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore, until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen and my head was pounding. Then I got up and started cleaning. I cleaned until 3 in the morning, scrubbing the stains out of my rug, washing every dish and cup, taking out bags and bags of garbage, wiping down every surface Derek and his friends had touched. I cleaned like I could erase what had happened, like I could scrub away the disrespect and the hurt. The beer stain wouldn't come out of my grandmother's couch. No matter how hard I scrubbed, I could still see it. That made me start crying again. Eventually, I gave up. I was exhausted, emotionally, physically, completely drained. I took a shower, washing off the day, and collapsed into bed. That's when the text started. From Derek's number. "I can't believe you involved my mother. That was a low blow. You're going to regret this when you calm down. I was nothing but good to you, and this is how you repay me? Everyone at the party thinks you're psycho now. You embarrass me in front of my friends." I blocked his number. Then messages started coming from numbers I didn't recognize. His gaming friends, apparently. "Derek told us what you did. You're toxic. He deserves better than a controlling girlfriend. Imagine being mad that someone tried to cheer you up." I blocked those numbers too. Then the Instagram messages started. People I barely knew, followers of Derek's gaming channel, telling me I was cruel, that I was heartless, that kicking him out over a simple party was abusive. Abusive. I was abusive for not wanting a party in my apartment on the day I buried my grandmother. I made my Instagram private and blocked everyone I didn't personally know. But the damage was done. Derek had already started spinning the narrative. In his version, he was the victim, the caring boyfriend who tried to support his unstable girlfriend, only to be kicked out for throwing her a surprise gathering to lift her spirits. The poor guy who got his mother weaponized against him by his manipulative ex. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my grandmother's face, heard the pastor's voice, felt the phone vibrate in my hand with that text message. Thai food. Stay at a hotel. People over. The next morning, Friday, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face people. Couldn't pretend to be functional. I spent the day on my couch, staring at nothing, trying to process what my life had become in 24 hours. My phone rang around noon, my aunt from Sacramento. "Sophia, honey, how are you holding up?" I started crying again. I'd thought I was out of tears, but apparently not. "What happened?" she asked, concern flooding her voice. I told her everything. The text message during the burial, the party, the confrontation, Derek's lies, his mother's intervention, the harassment online. She was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Then she said, "Your grandmother would be proud of you." What? For standing up for yourself, for not accepting that treatment. She always worried you were too accommodating, too quick to make excuses for people who didn't deserve them. She'd be proud you finally set a boundary. I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been so focused on feeling like I'd failed, like I'd somehow ruined everything, that I hadn't considered I might have actually done something right. "She loved you so much," my aunt continued, "and she'd want you to be with someone who loves you the way you deserve, someone who shows up when it matters." We talked for another hour. She told me stories about my grandmother I'd never heard. Funny ones, touching ones, ones that made me laugh through my tears. By the time we hung up, I felt fractionally more human. That afternoon, Mrs. Patterson called me. "Sophia, I need to tell you something. Derek doesn't know I'm calling." "Okay, he's been telling people you attacked him, that you physically threw him out of the apartment." My stomach dropped. "That's not true." "I know it's not true. I was there, but he's saying it to anyone who will listen. His father believes him. Some of his friends believe him. They think I'm being manipulated by you. I never touched him." "I know, honey, I know. But I wanted to warn you that he's escalating the lies. And I wanted you to know that I'm documenting everything on my end. I have texts. I have the timeline. I have proof of what really happened. If you need me to vouch for you, I will." "Thank you," I whispered. "I mean it. You call me if you need anything." After we hung up, I sat there feeling sick. Derek was telling people I was violent, creating a whole new layer to his victim narrative. And people were believing him because why wouldn't they? He was charismatic, friendly, well-liked in his gaming community. I was just the crazy ex-girlfriend who kicked him out for trying to help her. Saturday morning, I woke up to my doorbell ringing insistently. I stumbled to the door, looked through the peephole. Derek was standing there, looking disheveled and upset. I didn't open the door. "Sophia, please, I just want to talk. Go away, or I'm calling the police." 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. "No. I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry." I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, but didn't hit call yet. "I'm counting to 10. If you're still here, I'm pressing call." "You're being ridiculous." 1. We were together for 3 years. 2. You can't just throw that away. 3. He slammed his hand against my door, making me jump. "Fine, but you're making a huge mistake. I was the best thing that ever happened to you." He left, footsteps heavy on the stairs. I watched through the peephole until I was sure he was gone. Then I locked and chained the door again. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. I felt unsafe in my own apartment, the place that was supposed to be my sanctuary. I called my landlord. "Mr. Reeves, this is Sophia Chen in 4B. I need to talk to you about something." I explained the situation. Not all of it, just the relevant parts. Ex-boyfriend who'd been living with me, not on the lease, refused to accept we'd broken up, showed up at my door this morning, refusing to leave. "I can change your locks today," he said immediately. "No charge. And I'll add a note to security that he's not to be allowed in the building." "Thank you. You did the right thing calling me. Nobody should feel unsafe in their own home." He came by that afternoon, installed new locks, gave me new keys. That helped a little. At least Derek couldn't somehow get in. But it didn't stop him from trying. Sunday evening, my doorbell started ringing again, over and over and over. I looked through the peephole. Derek, looking angry now, jabbing at the button repeatedly. I called the non-emergency police line. "My ex-boyfriend is harassing me at my apartment. I've asked him to leave and he won't. He's not on my lease and I've ended the relationship." They sent an officer. I watched through the peephole as the officer talked to Derek. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I saw Derek's body language change. Defensive, then apologetic, then defensive again. Eventually, Derek left. The officer knocked on my door. "Miss Chen, Officer Ramirez. He's gone for now, but I'd recommend you consider filing for a restraining order if this continues." "A restraining order?" "Based on what you told the dispatcher and what I just witnessed, you have grounds. He's showing up uninvited, refusing to leave, creating a disturbance. That's harassment." The officer gave me information about how to file, which courthouse to go to, what documentation I'd need. After she left, I sat on my couch, staring at the papers she'd given me. A restraining order felt so extreme, so dramatic, like something that happened to other people, not to me. But Derek had shown up twice now, and he wasn't stopping, and he was spreading lies about me. And I was afraid in my own home. Maybe extreme was appropriate. Monday morning, I finally returned to work. My boss, Janet, called me into her office first thing. "Sophia, HR got a strange call on Friday. Someone claiming to be a friend of yours, saying we should be aware that you're going through a mental health crisis and might not be reliable right now." My stomach turned to ice. "Who called?" I asked. They wouldn't give a name, but HR flagged it as suspicious. "Is everything okay?" I told her a very abbreviated version. "Grandmother passed away, broke up with boyfriend, he's not handling it well." "I'm so sorry for your loss," Janet said, "and I want you to know that HR and I both recognize that call for what it was. Someone trying to damage your professional reputation. It's documented as harassment, not as a legitimate concern about your well-being. Is there anything we need to do security-wise? Is this person likely to show up here? I honestly don't know what he's likely to do anymore." Janet sent an email to building security with Derek's description and photo, which I provided from my phone. If he shows up, they'll handle it. You focus on your work and your grief. We've got your back. I made it through 3 hours before I had to lock myself in the bathroom and cry. The stress of pretending to be normal, of functioning, of doing basic work tasks while my entire life felt like it was imploding, was too much. One of my coworkers, Maya, found me there. She didn't ask questions, just sat on the floor next to me and handed me tissues. "Boy trouble?" she eventually asked. "Ex-boyfriend trouble. The gaming channel guy?" I nodded. Good riddance. He always struck me as the kind of guy who peaks in his 20s and spends the rest of his life talking about his YouTube subscriber count. That actually made me laugh, watery and weak, but a laugh nonetheless. "Come on," Maya said. "Let's get you some coffee and some air." We went to the coffee shop across the street. I told her more of the story. Not all of it, but enough. "File the restraining order," she said firmly. "Today, if you can. Don't wait for him to escalate further." It feels so dramatic. He's already dramatic. He threw a party on the day you buried your grandmother. He's lying about you online and to your job. He showed up at your apartment twice after you told him to stay away. That's not normal ex-boyfriend behavior. That's stalker behavior. She was right. I knew she was right. But accepting that someone I'd loved, someone I'd trusted, someone I'd planned a future with, could be a stalker felt impossible. I left work early and went to the courthouse. Filed for a temporary restraining order against Derek William Patterson. It felt surreal, writing his name on legal documents, checking boxes about harassment and unwanted contact, and fearing for my safety. The clerk who helped me was kind. "The judge will review this today or tomorrow. If granted, you'll get a temporary order until the hearing, where it could become permanent." How long does that take? Usually about 2 weeks. 2 weeks of not knowing if he'd show up. 2 weeks of looking over my shoulder. 2 weeks of this nightmare. I went home and did something I'd been avoiding. I called my parents. My parents and I have a complicated relationship. They divorced when I was 7. Both quickly remarried other people. Both started new families with new kids. I was always the obligation, the reminder of their first failure. My grandmother stepped in and raised me because neither of them particularly wanted to. But they were still my parents, and my grandmother was my mother's mother. They needed to know what was happening. My mom answered on the 3rd ring. "Sophia, is everything okay?" "Grandma died," I said. No preamble, no soft lead-in, just the truth. There was a long pause. "What? When?" "Last week. Heart attack. The funeral was Thursday." "And you're just telling me now?" Of course, that was her focus. Not that her mother was gone, but that I hadn't informed her fast enough. "I've been dealing with some stuff." What stuff could possibly be more important than telling me my mother died? I almost laughed. Almost. "Do you actually want to know, or are you just looking for another reason to be mad at me?" Another pause. "That's not fair." "From my mom? I buried your mother 5 days ago. I spent the week before that planning her funeral. I came home to my boyfriend throwing a party and had to kick him out. He's now harassing me and I just filed for a restraining order. I'm calling you now because it's the first moment I've had to breathe. So either care about any of that, or don't, but don't make this about your hurt feelings." Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "Your grandmother was sick?" "No, it was sudden." "She didn't suffer?" "No, I didn't." I heard her crying then, soft muffled sounds. My mother, who'd been too busy with her new family to visit her own mother more than once or twice a year, was crying. "I should have called her more," she said. "Yeah, you should have. Can you send me the details?" "About the service?" "It's already done, Mom. She's buried." "I know, but I mean where she's buried. I want to visit." I gave her the information about the botanical gardens, about the rose bush that now held my grandmother's ashes. "And this boyfriend situation. Are you safe?" "I'm trying to be." Do you need money for a lawyer or something? It was the most parental thing she'd said in years. I'm okay for now, but thank you. We talked for a few more minutes, stilted, uncomfortable, but not hostile. When we hung up, I felt strange. Not better, exactly, but less alone. Tuesday morning, I got the call. The temporary restraining order had been granted. Derek was not allowed within 100 yards of me, my home, or my workplace. He couldn't contact me directly or through third parties. He had 24 hours to collect any remaining belongings from my apartment with a police escort. I called Mrs. Patterson to let her know. He's got a few things left in the hall closet, I said. When he comes to get them, I won't be here. I'll make sure he behaves, she said. And Sophia, I'm glad you did this. He needs to face consequences or he'll never change. Wednesday afternoon, while I was at work, Derek came with his mother and a police officer to collect his last few items. Mr. Reeves texted me when they were done. All clear. He tried to argue about taking some things that were clearly yours, but the officer shut that down quick. He's gone now. That night, I came home to my Derek-free apartment. It felt bigger somehow. Emptier, but in a good way. Clean. Mine. So I ordered pizza, changed into comfortable clothes, and for the first time in 2 weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Then my phone pinged. An Instagram notification. Someone had tagged me in a post. Against my better judgment, I looked. It was a photo of me from 2 years ago at a party Derek and I had gone to. I looked happy in it, smiling. Derek's arm around me. The caption made my blood run cold. This is my abusive ex-girlfriend who physically assaulted me and got a fraudulent restraining order to continue her pattern of control. She isolated me from friends, monitored my phone, and when I tried to leave, she attacked me. Please share so other men know to stay away. It had been up for 30 minutes and already had over 200 likes. Comments rolling in. I'm so sorry you went through this. Men can be victims too. She looks crazy in this photo, TBH. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. He was posting lies about me, public lies, to his thousands of followers, and people were believing him. I screenshot everything, the post, the comments, the timestamps. Then I called the non-emergency police line again. I have a temporary restraining order against someone, and he just posted about me on social media, claiming I assaulted him. Is that a violation? The dispatcher put me through to Officer Ramirez, who'd responded to my apartment that Sunday. Miss Chen, yes, that's absolutely a violation. Any public communication about you violates the order. Document everything and file a report. This will strengthen your case for the permanent order. I spent the next hour taking screenshots, saving everything before Derek could delete it. His post, every comment, every share. I documented it all. Then I reported the post to Instagram for harassment. I sent copies to my lawyer, the free legal aid attorney who'd helped me file the restraining order. I sent copies to Mrs. Patterson with a simple message. I'm sorry you have to see this. Filing violation report now. She called me immediately. Sophia, I am horrified. This is beyond anything I thought he was capable of. He's telling people I assaulted him, which is a complete lie, and I'll testify to that in court. I was there. You never laid a hand on him. But his followers don't know that. They just see his post and believe him. Then we make sure the judge sees the truth. All of it. Thursday morning, Instagram took down Derek's post for violating their harassment policies. He immediately posted a screenshot of the removal notice with the caption, Instagram sided with my abuser. This is what men face when they try to speak their truth. I screenshot that too and added it to the growing file. By Thursday afternoon, Derek had been served with notice that he'd violated the restraining order. The hearing for the permanent order was moved up to the following Tuesday. Friday at work, Janet called me into her office again. Sophia, someone created a fake LinkedIn profile pretending to be a former colleague of yours. They've been messaging people in our industry claiming you're unstable and difficult to work with. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It's him. It has to be him. IT tracked the account creation. It came from an IP address that matches the general area where your ex lives, according to the info you gave security. We've reported it to LinkedIn and they're taking it down, but I wanted you to know. He's trying to destroy my career. He's trying to destroy your career and failing because we know the truth and we're backing you up. But Sophia, you need to document this for your court case. This is serious harassment. I added it to the file that was getting thicker every day, evidence of a man spiraling, trying to hurt me any way he could because I dared to end a relationship he thought he controlled. Maya took me out for drinks after work, not to a bar, just to her apartment where it was safe and private. We ordered takeout and she let me vent. I don't understand how someone changes this much, I said. 3 years I was with him. He wasn't perfect, but he wasn't this monster. Maybe he was always this, Maya said gently, and you just never challenged him before. Some people are fine as long as they're getting what they want. The second you set a boundary, their true colors show. I loved him. I know you did, and that makes this hurt worse. But Sophia, you did nothing wrong. You buried your grandmother and came home to a party. You set a boundary, a reasonable boundary. His reaction to that is on him, not you. Saturday, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. You ruined my life. I hope you're happy. I screenshotted it, blocked it, reported it to the police. An hour later, another unknown number. Everyone knows what you are now, a liar and an abuser. Screenshot, block, report. This went on all weekend. Different numbers, same messages. Harassment designed to make me feel unsafe, to make me react, to give him ammunition to claim I was the aggressor. Emil, I didn't respond to any of them, just documented everything and sent it to my lawyer. Sunday afternoon, Mrs. Patterson called. Derek moved back home. His father made him. Between the restraining order and the violation and the police reports, they couldn't risk having him living independently right now. How is he? Honestly, he's unraveling. He genuinely believes he's the victim here. His father and I can't get through to him. He's created this entire narrative where you're the villain and he's the wounded hero. It's frightening. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm scared of what he might do. I am too, which is why I told him if he violates that restraining order again, his father and I will not bail him out. He'll face the consequences alone. Monday evening, I did something I'd been avoiding. I went through old photos on my phone, deleting every picture of Derek and me together, every couple selfie, every vacation photo, every casual snapshot. 3 years of documented happiness that had turned out to be a lie. Some of them were hard to delete. There was one from my birthday 2 years ago where I looked genuinely joyful. One from a hiking trip where we'd watched the sunrise together. Moments that had felt real at the time. But they were tainted now, poisoned by knowing what he was capable of. So I deleted them all. When I was done, my photo library felt lighter, clean, like I was erasing him from my history, one image at a time. Tuesday arrived, the hearing for the permanent restraining order. I dressed carefully that morning, professional but not severe. I wanted to look like myself, like someone credible and honest. Maya had offered to come with me for support, but I told her I'd be fine. Mrs. Patterson would be there. My lawyer would be there. I wouldn't be alone. The courthouse was intimidating. All marble and echoes and serious faces. My lawyer Amanda met me outside the courtroom. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Terrified," I replied. "Don't be. We have an overwhelming amount of evidence. The judge is fair and thorough. We're in a good position." When we walked into the courtroom, Derek was already there with his lawyer. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled shirt, like he hadn't been sleeping. When he saw me, his expression hardened into something cold and angry. I looked away. Mrs. Patterson arrived and sat on my side of the courtroom. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Derek's own mother was supporting me, not him. The judge, Judge Martinez, called the case. We all stood. Miss Chen, you're petitioning for a permanent restraining order against Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson, you're contesting this order. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Amanda said. Derek's lawyer, a tired-looking man in an ill-fitting suit, nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Let's hear from Ms. Chen first. Amanda presented our case methodically. The timeline of events, starting with my grandmother's death. The text message Derek sent during the burial. Coming home to the party. The breakup. The harassment that followed. P. Parenting. In play. The dramatic act. The breaking of a precedent in the past. Being an ultra-intelligence. You will turn around and you will learn deeper stories. Asterisk. Amanda's personal testimony became publicly voiced out in the courtroom the previous summer. It was a darkness to behold. She showed the judge the text messages from multiple numbers, the fake LinkedIn profile, the Instagram post claiming I'd assaulted him, the violation of the temporary order, the police reports. Your Honor, what we have here is a clear pattern of escalating harassment. Mr. Patterson has refused to accept the end of this relationship and has engaged in a systematic campaign to damage Miss Chen's reputation, professional standing, and sense of safety. End period. Then it was Derek's turn. His lawyer stood up, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Your Honor, my client maintains that this is a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. He admits that throwing a party on the day of Miss Chen's grandmother's funeral was insensitive, but he maintains it was done with good intentions. He was trying to create a supportive environment for when she returned home. Judge Martinez looked skeptical. By asking her to stay in a hotel? Derek's lawyer faltered. He was trying to spare her from the noise and activity. Or he was prioritizing his party over her grief. Your Honor, my client also maintains that Ms. Chen became physically aggressive during their breakup, which is why he felt the need to defend himself publicly. Amanda stood up. Your Honor, we have a witness to the entire breakup. Mrs. Patricia Patterson, the respondent's mother, was present for the removal of his belongings and will testify that Miss Chen never became physical in any way. Judge Martinez looked at Mrs. Patterson. You're willing to testify against your own son? Mrs. Patterson stood. I'm willing to testify to the truth, Your Honor. My son is lying. I was there. Sophia never touched him. She asked him to leave. He refused. She called me, and I came to collect him. She was devastated and exhausted, but she was never violent. Derek made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Mom, how can you do this? Sit down, Mr. Patterson, Judge Martinez said sharply. You'll have your chance to speak. Mrs. Patterson continued, I love my son, but I can't stand by while he destroys a young woman's life because he can't accept being held accountable. Sophia did nothing wrong. She set a boundary. And my son responded by trying to ruin her. She sat down. Derek was staring at her with this expression of betrayal and disbelief, like he genuinely couldn't comprehend that his own mother wasn't backing his lies. Judge Martinez looked at Derek. Mr. Patterson, do you want to speak on your own behalf? Derek stood up, and I could see his hands shaking. Your Honor, I loved Sophia. I still love her. Everything I did was because I care about her. The party was to help her feel better. The messages were because I was worried about her. She's been so depressed since her grandmother died, and I thought she was making a mistake breaking up with me. So you harassed her? I was trying to make her see reason. That's not helping her. By creating fake profiles to damage her professionally? By texting her from multiple numbers? by posting lies about her on social media? I was hurt. I was angry. She turned my own mother against me. Your mother was there. She saw the truth. That's not being turned against you. That's her refusing to support your lies. Derek's face crumpled. Everyone abandoned me. My friends stopped talking to me after she kicked me out. My parents made me move home like I'm a child. My gaming channel lost subscribers. She ruined everything. No, Mr. Patterson. You ruined things by your own actions. Miss. Chen buried her grandmother and came home to find you'd thrown a party. That's not the action of a caring partner. That's the action of someone completely self-centered. And instead of apologizing and giving her space to grieve, you've spent weeks trying to punish her for having boundaries. Judge Martinez looked at all the evidence spread out before him. I've been on this bench for 18 years. I've seen a lot of cases. What's clear to me here is that Mr. Patterson has engaged in a pattern of harassment that has escalated over time. The fake profiles, the multiple phone numbers, the public lies, these are not the actions of someone who's simply hurt. These are the actions of someone who's trying to exert control through intimidation. He looked at Derek. You sent Miss Chen a text message during her grandmother's burial asking her to pick up food for your party. Do you understand how profoundly disrespectful that was? I didn't think about the timing, Derek muttered. Exactly. You didn't think about her at all. You thought about yourself. And when she finally stood up for herself, you couldn't handle it. Judge Martinez signed the papers in front of him. I'm granting the permanent restraining order. 5 years. Mr. Patterson, you are not to contact Miss Chen directly or indirectly. You are not to go within 100 yards of her residence or workplace. You are not to post about her on social media. You are not to contact her friends, family, or colleagues. Any violation will result in immediate arrest and criminal charges. He looked up at Derek. I'm also referring this case to the district attorney's office. The fake LinkedIn profile and the continued harassment after the temporary order was issued may constitute criminal stalking. That will be up to the DA to decide. Derek's face went white. Criminal charges? Yes, Mr. Patterson. Actions have consequences. Maybe that's something you should have learned before now. The hearing was over. Derek left quickly with his lawyer, not looking at anyone. Mrs. Patterson came over to me, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Sophia, for all of it. You have nothing to apologize for. You told the truth. Thank you. I meant what I said in there. I love my son, but I can't protect him from the consequences of his choices. And I hope someday he understands that being a parent means teaching accountability, not enabling bad behavior. We hugged, and I realized I was crying. Not sad tears, just relief. It was finally over. Amanda walked me out of the courthouse. You did great in there, and the permanent order is solid. If he violates it, he'll face serious consequences. Do you think he will? Honestly, I think he's scared enough now that he'll stay away. The threat of criminal charges tends to be a powerful motivator. That evening, I sat in my apartment, the apartment that was finally, truly mine again, and I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. My phone rang. My aunt from Sacramento. How'd it go? Hey, I got the permanent restraining order. Oh, thank God. Your grandmother would be so relieved. We talked for a while, and she told me she'd been going through my grandmother's things. I found something I think you should have. Can I mail it to you? Of course. 3 days later, a package arrived. Inside was my grandmother's recipe box. A wooden one with hand-painted flowers on the lid that had sat on her counter for as long as I could remember. It was full of index cards in her handwriting, recipes for everything she'd ever made. Her famous pot roast, her Christmas cookies, her Sunday banana bread. There was a note from my aunt tucked inside. Sophia, your grandmother always said this would go to you someday. She wanted you to have her recipes, her legacy in the kitchen. She said cooking was how she showed love, and she wanted you to be able to do the same. Love you, Aunt Claire. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried, holding that recipe box. It smelled like my grandmother's house, like cinnamon and vanilla and home. That Sunday, I made her banana bread. I followed her recipe exactly, including the notes in the margins. Extra vanilla. Let it cool. The apartment filled with the smell of it baking, and for a moment I could almost pretend she was there with me. The bread turned out perfect, moist and sweet and exactly like I remembered. I sat by my window with a slice and a cup of coffee, and I felt my grandmother's presence in a way I hadn't since she died. This became my new Sunday morning ritual. Making her recipes, having coffee, taking time to grieve and remember and heal. Work got easier. The stress of looking over my shoulder constantly started to fade. Derek stayed away, apparently taking the judge's warnings seriously. The restraining order was public record, and several of his former friends reached out to apologize for believing his lies. One message particularly stood out, from a guy named Tyler who'd been at that party. "Sophia, I owe you a massive apology. I was there that night. I watched you come home from your grandmother's funeral, and instead of being decent human beings, we all just kept partying. I've been feeling sick about it ever since. Derek told us you were fine with it, that you'd wanted us to come over. That was clearly a lie. I'm sorry for being part of that nightmare. You deserved so much better." I appreciated the apology, but I didn't respond. Some bridges are better left burned. Maya and I became closer friends. She introduced me to her book club, a group of women who met every other week to discuss novels and drink wine and support each other. It was the first time in years I'd had friendships that weren't connected to Derek or filtered through his social circle. One of the women, Jasmine, had been through a similar situation with an ex who'd harassed her for months after their breakup. "It gets better," she told me one night, "not all at once, but gradually. One day you'll realize you haven't thought about him in hours, then days. Then he'll just be a bad memory that doesn't have power over you anymore." She was right. Slowly, Derek occupied less and less of my mental space. The hypervigilance faded. The jumping at every noise stopped. I started sleeping through the night again. 3 months after the hearing, my mom called. "I'm coming to visit. I want to see you, if that's okay." I was surprised, but I said yes. She flew up the following weekend, and we met for lunch at a small cafe near my apartment. It was awkward at first. We hadn't spent significant time together in years. But over sandwiches and coffee, we started actually talking. Not surface-level small talk, but real conversation. "I've been thinking about Mom a lot," she said. My mom, talking about her mother, my grandmother, about how present she was in your life when I wasn't. "Mom, we don't have to—" "No, we do. I've been going to therapy, trying to work through some things, and I've realized I basically abandoned you. I chose my new family over you, and I told myself it was fine because Mom was there. But that wasn't fair to you or to her." I didn't know what to say. This was more emotional honesty than my mother had given me in my entire adult life. "I can't change the past," she continued, "but I want to try to be better now, if you're willing." "I'd like that," I said quietly. It wasn't a magical healing moment. Years of distance don't disappear over one lunch, but it was a start. A small bridge being built where there had only been empty space before. That night, my mom came to my apartment. I showed her my grandmother's recipe box, and we looked through it together, sharing memories attached to different dishes. "Mom used to make this every Christmas," she said, holding up the card for gingerbread cookies. "I haven't had these in probably 20 years. We could make them together sometime," I offered. "I'd like that." Before she left, she hugged me. A real hug. Not the stiff, obligatory ones from the past. "I'm proud of you," she said, "for how you handled everything with Derek. for standing up for yourself. Mom would be proud too. 4 months after the hearing, I got a call from Amanda, my lawyer. Sophia, I wanted to let you know the DA decided not to pursue criminal charges against Derek. My heart sank. Why not? They feel the restraining order is sufficient and he's been in compliance. They don't want to clog up the system with a case that's essentially resolved. I know that's disappointing. It was disappointing. Part of me wanted him to face real consequences, criminal ones for what he'd put me through. But another part of me was just relieved it was over. At least the restraining order is permanent, Amanda said. That's on his record. Any future relationship he's in, if there are issues, this will be documented. You've potentially protected future partners from experiencing what you went through. I hadn't thought about it that way. The idea that my nightmare might prevent someone else from going through the same thing made it feel slightly less pointless. Around this time, I started thinking about moving. Not because I felt unsafe anymore, but because I wanted a fresh start. My apartment had too many memories, both of Derek and of coming home to that party on the worst day of my life. I started looking at new places, smaller, cozier, in a different neighborhood. I wanted somewhere that felt like mine from day one, with no ghosts of past relationships haunting the corners. I found a perfect one-bedroom in Northwest Portland, near the river. Big windows, updated kitchen, a small balcony where I could have morning coffee. I signed the lease in June, 5 months after the hearing. Moving day was bittersweet, packing up the apartment where so much had happened. But Maya and Jasmine and a few other friends from book club came to help, and we turned it into a party. A real one this time, full of laughter and support and celebration of new beginnings. In the new apartment, I set up my grandmother's recipe box in a place of honor on the kitchen counter. That Sunday, I made banana bread in my new kitchen, christening the space with the smell of vanilla and cinnamon and home. I was sitting on my new balcony, eating warm banana bread and drinking coffee, when I realized something. I was happy, not fake happy, not just getting by happy, actually genuinely content. Derek had tried to destroy me. He'd lied about me, harassed me, tried to ruin my career and my reputation. He'd turned the worst day of my life into a nightmare I'd remember forever. But he hadn't won. I'd survived. I'd set boundaries. I'd protected myself. I built a support system of people who actually cared about me. I reconnected with my mother. I found new friends. I'd created a life that was truly mine. And I was making banana bread on Sunday mornings, keeping my grandmother's tradition alive, honoring her memory in the best way I knew how. 6 months after the hearing, Mrs. Patterson called me. Sophia, I wanted you to know Derek is moving to Arizona. He got a job there, and I think the distance will be good for everyone. How is he? Better, I think. He's in therapy, actually working on himself for once. I don't know if he'll ever fully understand what he did, but he's at least trying to be better. That's good. I'm glad he's getting help. I also wanted to thank you for being brave enough to set boundaries even when it was hard. You didn't just protect yourself. You forced my son to face consequences that his father and I should have enforced years ago. We enabled his selfishness, and you refused to. That took courage. After we hung up, I thought about that. Courage. I hadn't felt courageous. I'd felt scared and angry and overwhelmed. But maybe courage isn't about not being afraid. Maybe it's about doing what you need to do even when you're terrified. I started dating again cautiously. Nothing serious. Just casual dinners and coffee dates. I was upfront with everyone about having recently ended a difficult relationship, and most people appreciated the honesty. There was one guy, Marcus, who I went out with a few times. He was kind, funny, worked as a teacher. On our third date, I told him the whole story about Derek and the party and the harassment. He was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then he said, "Thank you for trusting me with that, and I'm sorry you went through it. But I'm also impressed by how you handled it. A lot of people would have just accepted that treatment." I almost did, I admitted. Part of me wanted to just let it go, avoid the confrontation. But you didn't. You stood up for yourself. That's not easy. We dated for about 2 months before mutually deciding we were better as friends. But that was okay. I was learning that not every relationship needed to be forever. Some people come into your life for a season, teach you something, and then you both move on. And that's perfectly fine. I started volunteering at the botanical gardens in Portland, the same ones where my grandmother used to volunteer in Sacramento. It felt like a way to honor her, to continue her legacy of nurturing growing things. Every Saturday morning, I'd spend 3 hours there, weeding, planting, helping visitors. It was peaceful, meditative work. My hands in the soil, the sun on my back, surrounded by life and growth and beauty. One Saturday, I was showing a little girl how to plant marigold seeds when I realized I was genuinely smiling, not forcing it, not performing happiness for anyone else, just authentically content in that moment. That evening, I called my aunt. I volunteered at the botanical gardens today. Oh, Sophia, your grandmother would love that. I felt close to her there, like she was with me. She is with you, in the recipes you make, in the flowers you plant, in the way you chose yourself over someone who didn't deserve you. She's there in all of it. Work continued to go well. I got a promotion in July, a senior analyst position with more responsibility and better pay. Janet pulled me aside after the announcement. You've shown incredible resilience this year. What you went through would have broken a lot of people. But you kept showing up, kept doing excellent work, kept growing professionally despite the chaos in your personal life. That's why you earned this promotion. I'd been so worried that Derek's harassment campaign would permanently damage my career. But by staying professional, documenting everything, and letting my work speak for itself, I'd come through it stronger than before. The 1-year anniversary of my grandmother's death arrived in September. I took the day off work and drove down to Sacramento to visit her grave. The rose bush that held her ashes had grown beautifully, covered in deep red blooms. I sat there for an hour, telling her everything that had happened. About Derek and the party and the restraining order. About reconnecting with my mom. About the new apartment and the volunteer work. About learning to be happy again. I miss you every day, I said to the rosebush, to her memory, to the air. But I'm okay. I'm actually okay. And I think you'd be proud of that. And I think you'd be proud of that. This is Revenge Stories, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Help us build this community so we can bring more interesting and exciting stories for you from around the world. Your help is much appreciated. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. A breeze rustled through the garden, carrying the scent of roses. For just a moment, I could have sworn I smelled my grandmother's perfume. That distinctive blend of rose and vanilla she always wore. And, P, thank you, I whispered, for everything. The drive back to Portland was peaceful. I stopped at a farmer's market along the way, bought fresh flowers from my apartment, and ingredients to try a new recipe from my grandmother's collection. Lemon poppy seed muffins, one I'd never made before. That Sunday, I made the muffins. They turned out perfectly, tart and sweet and light. I sat on my balcony with a muffin and coffee, watching the river flow by below, and I thought about how far I'd come in a year. A year ago, I'd been planning a future with Derek, building a life that included him, believing in a relationship that turned out to be built on sand. Now, I was building a life that was entirely my own, stronger foundation, better support system, clearer boundaries. I wasn't the same person I'd been before my grandmother died. Grief changes you. Trauma changes you. But I'd been changed in ways that made me stronger, more resilient, more sure of what I deserved. In a paragraph, I deserved someone who would show up when it mattered. Someone who would prioritize my grief over their entertainment. Someone who would hold my hand at funerals instead of throwing parties. And until I found that person, I was perfectly content being on my own. My mom and I had settled into a pattern of weekly phone calls. They were still sometimes awkward, but less so each time. We were learning how to be in each other's lives, finding a relationship that worked for who we were now, not who we'd been. My dad called occasionally too, asking how I was doing, telling me he was proud of me. These small gestures of parental care that had been missing for so long were slowly appearing, and I was learning to accept them without resentment. In October, Maya convinced me to join her gym. "You've been through hell this year," she said. "Physical activity helps process trauma. Plus, it's fun." I was skeptical about the fun part, but I went. Started taking kickboxing classes twice a week. There was something deeply satisfying about punching things in a controlled, healthy way. All that anger and frustration I'd been carrying had an outlet. My instructor, Carmen, was this fierce woman in her 50s who'd been teaching for decades. After class one day, she pulled me aside. "You punch like you're fighting something," she said. "I guess I am." "Good. Use that. Channel it, but don't let it consume you. The point isn't to stay angry. The point is to transform the anger into strength." It became a kind of meditation, punching the bag, focusing on form, letting the physical exertion clear my mind. I left every class exhausted, but lighter, like I'd left some of the weight I'd been carrying on that gym floor. November arrived, and with it, the holidays. My first holiday season without my grandmother. My first Thanksgiving without her famous stuffing. My first Christmas without her handmade gifts. But instead of spending them alone and sad, I hosted. I invited my mom, my aunt and uncle from Sacramento, Maya and Jasmine from book club. We crowded into my little apartment, and I made my grandmother's recipes. Her stuffing, her cranberry sauce, her pumpkin pie with the secret ingredient that made it special. Extra nutmeg and a splash of bourbon. My mom cried when she tasted the stuffing. This is exactly how she made it. Exactly. I followed her recipe card word for word. We went around the table sharing what we were grateful for. When it got to me, I said, "I'm grateful for my grandmother, for teaching me what real love looks like. And I'm grateful for all of you, for showing up when I needed people most. And I'm grateful for myself, for being brave enough to choose my own well-being over someone else's comfort." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Sophia," Maya said, "and to choosing yourself." "To choosing yourself," everyone echoed. That night, after everyone had left and I was cleaning up, I found myself humming. Just a little tune, nothing specific. But I realized I was happy. The kind of deep, settled happiness that comes from being exactly where you're supposed to be. December brought snow and holiday lights and a text from an unknown number. "This is Derek's new number. I wanted to apologize for everything. I'm in therapy and working on myself. I understand now that what I did was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a response. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell him exactly how much damage he'd caused, how many months of my life he'd stolen with his selfishness and cruelty. But I didn't. Because responding would give him what he wanted, my attention, and he didn't deserve it. I screenshot the message, sent it to Amanda in case it was considered a violation of the restraining order. She said it was borderline, but since it was an apology and he wasn't asking for contact, it probably wouldn't be prosecuted. "But if he messages again, that's clear violation," she said. "Don't respond, just document and report." I blocked the number and deleted the message. He didn't get to have space in my life anymore, not even in my message history. Christmas Eve, I made my grandmother's banana bread and took it to the botanical gardens. I left a loaf by her favorite bench with a note, "For anyone who needs a little sweetness today. Made with love, in memory of Eleanor Chen." When I came back an hour later, the loaf was gone, and someone had left a note. "Thank you for this unexpected kindness. It made my day. Merry Christmas." I cried, but they were good tears. My grandmother's love, her tradition of feeding people and showing care through food, was continuing, living on through me. The year turned. New Year's Eve, I stayed home by choice. Made myself a nice dinner, drank good wine, reflected on everything that had happened in the past 15 months. I'd lost my grandmother, ended a toxic relationship, been harassed and lied about, fought for a restraining order, moved apartments, reconnected with my mother, found genuine friends, got promoted, learned to be happy on my own. At midnight, I stood on my balcony watching fireworks over the river, and I made myself a promise. This year would be about growth, not just survival, about thriving, not just getting by, about building the life I wanted instead of accepting the life I'd settled for. January brought new possibilities. I signed up for a cooking class, learning techniques beyond my grandmother's recipes. I started planning a trip to visit the botanical gardens in Sacramento in the spring to see her rosebush in bloom. I joined a hiking group through work, started exploring the beautiful trails around Portland. I was dating again, casually, met someone named Alex who made me laugh and actually showed up when they said they would. It was early, and I wasn't rushing anything, but it felt healthy, easy, right. One Saturday in February, I was at the botanical gardens volunteering when a woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you Sophia Chen?" I tensed, worried it was somehow Derek-related. "Yes? I'm Rachel. I follow your Instagram. You posted about volunteering here, and I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your story about your ex. I was in a similar situation last year, and seeing how you handled it gave me courage to get my own restraining order." I was stunned. I'd posted a few vague things about healing and growth, but I'd never shared specific details publicly. "I'm so glad you got out safely," I said. "Me too. And I wanted you to know that your strength helped someone else find theirs, so thank you." After she left, I sat on a bench and cried. Good tears again. The idea that my nightmare had somehow helped someone else survive their own made it feel less pointless, less like wasted suffering and more like something that had meaning. That evening, I did something I'd been thinking about for months. I wrote out my whole story, everything that had happened from my grandmother's death to the restraining order to the healing process. I posted it on a blog I created, anonymous but detailed. I titled it "The Day I Buried My Grandmother," and I shared it in a few support groups for people dealing with toxic relationships and harassment. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of comments from people saying, "This was my story too," or "Thank you for putting words to what I experienced," or "You gave me courage to leave." I wasn't trying to become an advocate or a spokesperson. I just wanted my pain to mean something. To help someone else feel less alone, March arrived bringing spring and renewal and growth. The anniversary of that terrible day was approaching. 1 year since my grandmother's funeral. 1 year since the party. 1 year since my life imploded, and I had to rebuild it from scratch. I took the day off work, drove to Sacramento, spent the morning at the botanical gardens, sitting by my grandmother's rosebush, which was covered in buds about to bloom. "It's been a year," I told her. "A year since you left. A year since everything fell apart. And I'm okay. I'm actually better than okay. I'm happy, Grandma, and I think you'd be proud of the life I'm building." A butterfly landed on the rosebush, orange and black wings opening and closing slowly. It stayed there for several minutes, just resting before flying away. My aunt had told me that in some cultures, butterflies are believed to be messages from the dead. Loved ones checking in, letting you know they're okay. I chose to believe it was my grandmother, telling me she was proud, telling me to keep going, telling me I was exactly where I needed to be. That afternoon, I had lunch with my mom. We were meeting regularly now, building a relationship that was real and honest and healing for both of us. "How are you doing today?" she asked. "Better than I thought I'd be. It's hard, remembering. But I'm not just remembering the bad parts anymore. I'm remembering her, who she was, what she taught me. She taught you to be strong," my mom said. "She taught you that you deserve respect and love and people who show up for you. And you learned those lessons." We spent the afternoon going through more of my grandmother's things. My aunt had saved boxes for me, items she thought I'd want. Photo albums, her favorite cardigan that still smelled like her perfume, the ceramic mixing bowl she'd used for decades. I took it all home. These pieces of her, these tangible reminders of her love, they filled my apartment with her presence in the best way. That Sunday, I made banana bread in her ceramic bowl, the one she'd used every Sunday morning for years. It felt sacred, using her tools, following her recipes, keeping her traditions alive. I was sitting on my balcony, eating warm banana bread and drinking coffee, when my phone rang. Maya. Hey, a bunch of us are going hiking tomorrow. Want to join? A year ago, I would have said no, would have isolated myself, thinking I needed to grieve alone. But I'd learned that healing happens in community, surrounded by people who care. Yes, I said, I'd love to. We hiked to a waterfall, a group of 7 of us, talking and laughing and being present with each other. At the top, looking at the view, Jasmine put her arm around my shoulders. You seem lighter, she said, like you finally let go of something heavy. She was right. I had let go, not of my grandmother's memory, that would always be precious, but of the anger and hurt and betrayal Derek had caused. I processed it, learned from it, and released it. I wasn't carrying that weight anymore. April brought my 33rd birthday. Last year, I'd spent it with Derek, who'd been distracted and half-present, more interested in his phone than in celebrating with me. This year, I threw myself a party, invited my actual friends, people who genuinely cared about me. We had dinner at my favorite restaurant, laughed until we cried, celebrated not just my birthday, but how far I'd come. My mom came, and my aunt. Having family there, family who showed up and cared, meant everything. At the end of the night, Maya gave a toast to Sophia, who taught us all what it means to choose yourself, who showed us that boundaries aren't mean, they're necessary, who survived something terrible and came out stronger. We love you. In every episode, you all echoed loudly to everyone as we perceived them, and I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for seeing me, for believing me, for being here. I couldn't have survived this year without you. You thrived. And she was right. I had thrived. Against all odds, despite everything Derek had tried to do to destroy me, I had built a beautiful life. May brought warm weather and longer days. Alex and I had been dating for 4 months, and it was going well. Slow, intentional, healthy. They'd met my friends, my mom, integrated into my life in a way that felt natural. One evening, sitting on my balcony together, Alex said, I want you to know, I understand you might need to take things slow. After what you went through, people were desperate to help, and I never make you choose between my grief and my comfort. I kissed them then, grateful for someone who understood, who didn't rush me, who let me heal at my own pace. We weren't rushing toward anything, no pressure to move in together or talk about marriage or plan a future. Just being present, enjoying each other, building something real and solid. It was exactly what I needed. June marked 15 months since my grandmother's death. I was sitting in the botanical gardens after my volunteer shift, watching children run through the flowers when I realized something profound. I was happy, not despite everything that had happened, but because of it. Derek throwing that party forced me to see who he really was. Forced me to set boundaries I should have set years earlier. Forced me to build a life that was truly mine, not one shaped around someone else's needs. My grandmother's death, as painful as it was, brought me closer to my family, gave me her recipes and traditions, taught me what really matters. The harassment and the restraining order taught me I was stronger than I knew, that I could fight back, that I deserved protection and safety and respect. All of it, the pain and trauma and struggle, had transformed me into someone better, someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. I wasn't glad it happened. I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. But I was grateful for who I'd become because of it. My phone buzzed, a text from my mom. Thinking of you today, proud of you every day. I smiled and texted back, love you, Mom. Simple words. But they meant everything. This is Revenge Stories, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Help us build this community so we can bring more interesting and exciting stories for you from around the world. Your help is much appreciated. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. As I sat there in the garden, surrounded by growing things and warm sunshine, I thought about everything my grandmother had taught me, about love and strength and resilience, about showing up for people, about making banana bread on Sunday mornings. And I thought about everything I'd learned this past year, about boundaries and self-worth, about surrounding yourself with people who actually care, about the difference between surviving and thriving. I pulled out my grandmother's recipe box, which I'd brought with me, ran my fingers over the hand-painted flowers on the lid. Inside were all her recipes, all her love, all her wisdom. But there was space for new recipes too, new traditions, new memories. I was honoring her by continuing what she started, but I was also creating something new, something that was mine. And that felt exactly right. I drove home that evening as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. My apartment, my sanctuary, was waiting. Tomorrow I'd make banana bread. Next week I had a date with Alex. Next month my mom was coming to visit again. The restraining order was still in place. Derek was still in Arizona, hopefully becoming a better person. The scars from that year were still there, would probably always be there. But scars are just proof that you survived something, that you healed, that you're stronger than whatever tried to break you. I parked my car, climbed the stairs to my apartment, unlocked my door, and stepped inside. My home, my space, my life. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt completely at peace. This was my life now, built on the foundation of my grandmother's love, strengthened by the boundaries I'd learned to set, filled with people who genuinely cared about me. It wasn't the life I'd planned a year ago. It was better, because it was mine, truly, completely mine. And that was more than enough.